It's college football and only college football here, and we appreciate the AP poll. Like, the AP poll gives us a lot to talk about. It's a good landmark for where different teams are at in the eyes of the public. And I'm not saying the AP poll is just 100% wrong, but I don't think they're 100% right either. Because if I know our audience, you're probably a lot like us in the sense that we sit down, probably 8 a.m. Saturday morning, maybe 9 a.m. Eastern time, and you're sitting down and you're watching either Big Noon Kickoff or College Game Day. And you may not move from that spot until Pac-12 After Dark finishes up. And I'll say this, I don't think the people that put together the AP poll have that same schedule. I think they do a lot of box score scouting. I think they look at what the final score was. I think they look at brands. We don't really do that around here. And so we took it upon ourselves to put together the Nothing But Ball poll, which is true to form. We're looking at college football. We're watching the games. We're telling you what we think, and we're going from there. So there is no agenda. There's no additives. Like I said, there's no high fructose corn syrup baked into this thing. Just ball and only ball. So without further ado, let's get into it. The Nothing But Ball poll only goes with 10 teams. All right? We could do 25, but we're going to stick with 10 right now. All right? So at number 10, Washington Huskies. A new entry into the Nothing But Ball top 10. They throttled Boise State. 56-19 was the final score. They got Tulsa up next. Then they go to East Lansing to play Michigan State. Listen, as long as Michael Penix Jr. is playing quarterback for them, they are going to be in every single game that they play. I don't think we learn a ton about them until they play Oregon October 14th in Seattle, mind you. And then they go to USC November 4th. So they're going to be really good. It is what it is. Roll, party, roll. Washington at 10. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, no time like the present. Lock in. We're going to keep this party rolling, all right? Now, at number 9, we got Notre Dame. They're also new to the Nothing But Ball poll, and they absolutely handle business their first 2 games of the season. And they have NC State at NC State this coming weekend. We're going to learn about them a little bit in this game. We'll talk more about that here just a little bit later in this live show. They've looked how we've expected them to look so far against Tennessee State and Navy, right? I mean, those were difficult in their own sense to get up for, but you took care of business how we'd expect you to take care of business. Now, when it comes to that game against Ohio State September 23rd, and then you go to Duke, those are the 2 games where it's like, all right, what do we got under the hood here? Sam Hartman has been, seamless in terms of becoming your starting quarterback. There's no way to know that he played somewhere else before being at Notre Dame if you were just watching him for the first time these past 2 Saturdays. How does he look against Power 5 opponents? We'll see. But if they make it to the college football playoff based on their schedule, they will have earned it. We say it a lot on here. Notre Dame is probably the most impactful college football team that's out there right now because they're going to play Clemson. They're going to play Ohio State. They're going to play USC. They got to go to Duke. So if they don't get in there themselves, Notre Dame that is, they're going to have a chance to spoil it for somebody else. So Notre Dame, keep an eye on them. They're number 9 in this week's Nothing But Ball poll. Now, up 1 spot from last week, Tennessee, benefiting from LSU stumbling. They took care of Virginia, and we are all waiting on them to go to Gainesville week 3 and play Florida. Joe Milton and the way that he operates, his leadership, I always say this, I think quarterbacks and head coaches, teams take on the personas of those 2 individuals. And Joe Milton, man, getting in the end zone, there's a little bit of swag there, a little bit of an edge. Now, I felt that edge from Tennessee watching them in 1 game. Now, it's only 1 game. Did what you're supposed to do against Virginia in Nashville, so no such thing as a bad win. But it was just interesting to me to watch the way that they responded when things didn't go their way early. Couple of miscues. Don't exactly look like you're starting hot out of the gate. Doesn't matter. Collect themselves. End up just throttling Virginia and getting it done. So they're number 8 for us this week. We're going to learn a lot about them week 3, like I was mentioning. I'm curious to see how they look when they go and play in the Swamp, a place they haven't won in 20 years. So we'll watch that. But Tennessee, number 8 for us in this week's Nothing But Ball poll. At number 7, another team that's up 1 spot, the Penn State Nittany Lions. 38-15 over West Virginia. This is the toughest team in my mind to not overreact to because there was so much talk about Drew Aller and what he could mean for them and what they could have in the vertical pass game. And I was doing my very best to get out in front of that conversation and say, it may take a second. It may take a second for him to totally mesh and just be the guy at Penn State and look like the quarterback you'll expect him to look like. And then lo and behold, goes out and wins Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. So, yeah, he looks great. Keandre Lambert-Smith is going to be a vertical presence for them, it looks like. We know what this roster is. We know what they're built to do. They're built to, at the very least, win 10 football games. Can they get over the hump against Ohio State and Michigan? That's the big question. And then also, by the way, can you be consistent and walk that tightrope against the other teams you're supposed to be? So we'll watch Penn State, number 10 for us right now, or in the top 10 right now for us, rather, at number 7 in the Nothing But Ball poll. Tough team to not overreact to. We kept them at 7 this week. A big mover. Potentially after this week. They're up one spot right now, but they could be a big mover when it comes to this time next week. The Alabama Crimson Tide sitting at number 6. Alabama did Alabama things against Middle Tennessee. Man, I cannot wait for this weekend. We're going to learn so much about Alabama this coming weekend. We're not going to find them after this weekend, but we're going to learn a lot about what they're going to be the rest of the way. Jalen Milroe hitting the deep ball a few times against Middle Tennessee, did he? He looked like he was pretty in control, pretty poised. And there's a lot of people that will say, well, that was Middle Tennessee. And hitting the deep pass as a quarterback, to me, is a whole lot like hitting the three-point shot. Like, if you're open, you still got to hit that shot. Like, the size of the football field doesn't change when you're playing Middle Tennessee. When that receiver becomes open, if he's open against Middle Tennessee, he's open against Georgia, whoever he's open against, he's open. You better deliver a dime and hit him in stride. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So, yes, it was against Middle Tennessee, but I was encouraged to see him line it up and hit 3 deep touchdown passes because they're going to need that going forward. They want to play bully ball. They want to play in the box. They want to be able to try and, impose their will physically. But when it comes to that play action game and someone's open downfield, hit Isaiah Bond, hit Malik Benson. Was encouraged to see him do that this past weekend. Again, Alabama at number 6 for us in the Nothing But Ball poll. Now, at number 5, down one spot. First team to move down one spot so far. That's still in the top 10 right now, and that's USC. And USC, we're not penalizing you because you scored 66 points. There's some other tectonic plates shifting right now. We know we're going to learn a lot about USC when it comes to the games in October. Now they play at Colorado September 30th, so we'll see where things sit when that game arrives. I mean, there's no real opponent they've played just yet. It's been a San Jose State, and it's been Nevada. No disrespect to those teams. We got a caffeine alert this coming Saturday, 10:30 Eastern kick against Stanford. Watch that game. Stanford, historically kind of a tough team, likes to play in the trenches. We'll get a good gauge, I think, or at least a good litmus test for where USC is at on the defensive line side of things. I'm not saying Stanford's going to be a world beater. I'm just saying they're going to, take their shots, run the football. We're going to find out about USC as we go on here. The number 5 this week, nothing to be dropped too far, just some other teams making some moves. That's why they're at number 5. Also a team down one spot from last week, Ohio State at number 4. 23-3 against Indiana. No such thing as a bad loss, no such thing as a bad win, no such thing as a good loss. I am circling that game at Notre Dame, as are you. Kyle McCord looked good. Didn't look like he was driving the Ferrari that we would all hope the offense would look like in week 1. We have more thoughts about the situation with him and Devin Brown a little bit later in this live show, but all in all, you beat a Big Ten conference opponent on the road in your first start. Like, hey, hats off to Kyle McCord. We'll just see how they go as we get further along here. Now, for number 3, this is a team that made a jump 2 spots in the Nothing But Ball top 10. Florida State is the number 3 team for us in the country, and you want to know why? Because they dismantled a top 5 team in LSU. 45-24. You got folks in Tallahassee saying it should have been 45-17. There was a touchdown there at the end late for LSU. This validated a lot of the hype that we had around Florida State going into the year. And that was our question. Hey, everyone's juicing up Florida State for good reason. But what happens when you roll the ball out there and play a team with a coach that knows how to win in Brian Kelly and a really good roster against LSU? What happens then? How do you look when everyone's told you how good you are? Now, that's still the question we have for them as they go further along in their schedule, but you look at that roster preseason and in that game against LSU, and you kind of have the same feeling after week 1. Hey, there's no real weaknesses within this roster for LSU, or for Florida State, rather, against LSU. So they're at number 3 this week. Consistency. It's key for all these teams, but especially for Florida State. You beat LSU. Now, can you walk the tightrope and not have a letdown spot against a team like Syracuse, like a team like North Carolina, whoever it ends up being in the ACC that they end up having to play? Can you keep the main thing the main thing? Find out a lot about them going forward. Now, number 2 team in the country, no surprise here. You got Michigan. Man, wish they had covered. Selfishly, I wish they had covered that 36.5. That was one of our picks on Against the Suits, if you're following me on Instagram. Nonetheless, we move on. They looked how you wanted them to against Eastern Carolina. October 21st, they're at Michigan State. That's the first time where you really start to say, what's Michigan going to be? It's a rivalry game. It's on the road. You kind of throw common sense out the window there. So far, so good. No Jim Harbaugh, no problem. Michigan, number 2 in the country for us in the Nothing But Ball poll. Now, at number 1, also no surprise, you got Georgia. Georgia did Georgia things against UT Martin. It's going to be Georgia versus Georgia likely till November, and I don't mean that to say they're not going to play another team that's going to be, solid talent-wise. I mean, they play South Carolina here in a few weeks. My question is Georgia versus Georgia in the sense of, can you stay dialed in? Because everyone's telling you you've gone back-to-back. There's so much stress on you to have to go for a third in a row. There's so much stress on a lot of these guys stepping into that spot that are trying to keep the streak alive. Carson Beck, a lot of talk about his start. I thought he looked good. I mean, threw for almost 300 yards. Was it perfect? No. Is it going to be perfect your first time starting at quarterback for the University of Georgia? Like, probably not. Even so, we understand they got a real opportunity here to line themselves up how they want to when it comes to November, and they play Ole Miss and they play Tennessee. I'm curious about that 4-week stretch where you play South Carolina, Auburn, and Kentucky. I said 4-week stretch. They also, I believe, play UAB somewhere in there. Bottom line, you're not going to get tested a ton before then, so can you give all those teams the appropriate amount of attention? Curious to see. So for us, that's Nothing But Ball poll. We'll take a quick review here. At number 10, you got Washington. At number 9, you got Notre Dame. At number 8, it's Tennessee. At 7, it's Penn State. 6 is Alabama. 5 is USC. At 4, we got Ohio State. A riser, Florida State at 3, Michigan at 2, and Georgia at number 1 in the Nothing But Ball poll. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.